I told myself last year that I had to share this time around and not just do announcements in programming. So this is not my normal. So this is a bit of a stretch for me, but I just first have to say thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the risk with us. I mean, this is such an incredible experience. It'll take me weeks to figure out more words for it. So yeah, you guys are incredible. You came from all over the place. I just talked to a girl from the UK. She flew across the ocean here. I mean, that's just wild. So yeah, you guys are awesome. And I know these are the kind of the bittersweet moments, of things are wrapping up, and it's, I wanted to keep going on, and I want to go sleep for 5 days. So I'm sure that you have a little bit of both feelings. So go get dry when you get home. But I just have to say it. When I saw that hurricane coming, 5 days before it, I was joking with our team and said, the weather was like forecast to be perfectly blue, right? No clouds. It was going to be awesome. Maybe a little warm, but hey, that's great. And I was joking with Matt. I said, the worst case scenario is a tropical low forms out of nowhere and then comes up and sits over in Middle Tennessee. And we were like, haha, that'd be funny. And and then I all of a sudden I had I'm a weather dork, so I have this weather app and I get notifications when hurricanes form. It's a long story, but I like to go chase hurricane swells because I try to surf, so I try to know where they are. But so all of a sudden I see this one that formed. I'm like, oh, that's in the Gulf of Mexico. Interesting. And then I look at the path. I'm like, it's going towards Tennessee. I'm like, surely it'll be later. It's not even to Nicaragua. It's way south. And then I start tracking it, and then I see. It turned into Tropical Storm Nate. And then I was like, oh, man. I don't know what that means, but some people are like, well, it's your name. You have authority over it. And I was like, or is it just destiny, is it just going to come? And and somebody reminded me today that Nathan means gift of God. And there's something about our ideal plans that we have in our head. That we set the future and we set this thing in our mind as this is how it needs to be. And if it is this thing, then I will be happy, fulfilled, satisfied. And if it's not this thing, I'm going to be sad, depressed, bitter, disappointed, right? And we miss the infinite amount of gifts that there are in life from things that on the surface seem like nothing but pain, frustration, disappointment. Yesterday was a rough day for me because I thought we were just going to be completely flooded. And it for a couple of hours, I was really having a hard time even being here. It robbed me from being present, right? I was thinking of all the worst case scenarios, and I was thinking of all the stuff that could go wrong, and I couldn't be myself. It was weird. I felt like I was here, but I wasn't here. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about today when life doesn't go to plan. And I know that kind of sounds intense, but we'll have some fun too. I'll tell some funny stories as well as some more intense ones. And I hope that, I just know, I've seen your guys' emails. There's so much in the human story, the spectrum. There's been incredible joys here, and there's been people who couldn't get here. There was a lady who told me she was in the hospital because her 15-year-old daughter tried to commit suicide, and she couldn't come because she was in the hospital. And at the same exact time, how is there so much joy and so much pain all at once, right? I mean, it's crazy. So I want to talk about that today, and hopefully we can sort of re-look at some of that as maybe what is painful, there's also a gift in it. So you guys ready? Do you want to do that? Okay. Funny story first, just to let's have a little fun. So my wife and I, we love to travel. If you ask any of my friends, they'll probably roll their eyes and tell you that that's very true and that we're gone a lot. We have definitely sort of taken full advantage of traveling with UP. So there's these moments where, a church will pay for us to fly to Europe or something, and then, you're already in Europe. Why not, go somewhere else, right? So my wife indulges me on just letting me sort of plan these kind of weird trips, and she just goes along with it. So I'm definitely the blame for this. And I got my wife in a very interesting predicament about 3 years ago in Austria. And I heard about this idea of hiking in the Alps in Austria, and I thought that sounded really romantic and amazing. And then there's these things called mountain huts. I don't know what the German word is, but there's these, I read about them on this blog, and I thought, man, there's these magical houses way up in the Alps, and they have hot food and hot showers and mattresses, and you don't have to bring all your gear. You just kind of hike up there. You just have a little day pack. And then not only is there one, but there's a network of them all around the mountains. You just have to hike from one to the next, right? So I said, Brittany, after this trip, we got to go to Austria. Don't worry, we don't have to bring our tent with us. We're just going to hike to the mountain. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have a great time. And I showed her the photos, perfectly blue sky, right? You might see where this is going. So we get all our stuff. We somehow get from London to Vienna I don't remember how we did it, but I stashed my drums in somebody's house. And so we end up in Vienna, and we get on a train to the middle of nowhere, to this little town at the base of the mountain. And of course, we get on the wrong train at first, because Americans are really bad at trains, right? If anybody get on the wrong train in Europe before? Yeah, it happens. So we get going in the right way, and we get off our last connection, and then there's nobody at the train station, which is never a good feeling. You're the last one, and we have our little cute backpacks on, and we realize there's no more trains for the day, and we're about an hour away via train to where we need to get to. And so we start wandering around looking for any people at all. And maybe somebody who could speak English, that was preferably. So we eventually, I think Brittany actually, we just split up. We're okay, meet back in 15 minutes. So she goes one way, I go another way, and you hope you're not going to be split up forever, You're see you later. And so Brittany finally comes back and says that she flagged down this guy in a station wagon. So we hop in, this guy's willing to take us, so we hop in the back of his car. And there was no seats in the back, so I was just laying in the back, just I'm good back here. And Brittany had awkward, I don't even know, sign language chit chat with the guy because he didn't speak any English. And we communicated by this that we were hiking, and it's point to your backpack, and then that kind of thing. So we finally make it to our guest house, and we go to sleep, and we wake up to the soothing sound of rain. Just not like the kind of sound machine kind. Just not like last night, way more consistent all night. And it was completely socked in the clouds. I mean, you couldn't see anything. And Brittany, she was a trooper. There you are. Finally found you. Okay. Hey. Sorry about that. So I was like, honey, you just lay here. I'm going to go, figure out. What I was going to figure out was I didn't have a map. So I thought I should go get a map. So I walk around doing sign language, sort of trying to where's a map? And it was I'm hiking, pointing to the mountains. And I finally end up in this tobacco shop that somehow had maps. I don't know. And I got this, I bought a map, and then we put our raincoats on, and we hiked across this road, a highway, just kind of a weird, just towards this foggy mountain thing. And, you have the plan in your head, right? It's okay, I read about the trail. There's the trail markers. There's, you have the plan in your head. We couldn't find the trail. We spent, I think, 2 hours to not even be able to get to the trail, which is never a good feeling. So we finally find it. It's, Brittany found it. Of course, Brittany's better at finding things than me. And it was behind an old church building, and we started the trail, and we had 8 miles to do and 2,000 feet elevation that day. It was a pretty beast of a day. And we start hiking up, and the fog kind of just keeps getting thicker. So the visibility starts out, you can see, maybe a couple 100 yards, and then it gets down to 100 yards. And then it gets down to 50 yards, and to the point that we couldn't see the sun. And I didn't have a compass in my backpack because I was going to this magical hut that had everything you need. And right? And I had this idea of like, I just have to get here and then we're good, right? And so we had this very eerie experience where we hiked for an hour, we kind of missed our trail, and we came back to the exact same location that we started, a legitimate circle for an hour. And it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And I'm trying to keep it together because we kind of have this chain reaction thing that if I can like kind of keep it calm on the outside, then Brittany's like, okay, well, if you're calm, then I'm calm. And I'm like, oh, we're good. We just hiked in a circle for an hour, but we're good. Like, I mean, we don't have a compass, but I think if we just pray, then that might be north. And in my head, I can't believe it. Every time I tell this, I'm like, why? We were crazy. But thank the Lord, we finally found the right trail, and we made it to the guest house. It was like the kind of classic, I mean, it was like straight up, and we're just like dying tired. And then you just see like the shape of it. It's like, could that be it? You know, kind of one of those things. So we make it to there. We did find a hot shower, and that was the best hot shower ever. And the next morning, of course, there was more rain, and my wife had tennis shoes on with holes all in it, so her feet were totally wet. So we decided we had a 4-day trip to go over this mountain range and around the corner, and I said we're done. So we hiked back down to the train, and we didn't have train tickets because I was dumb and bought like a train ticket on the other side of the mountain. So then they caught us and they confiscated our passports and fined us €200. But we did just like it was bad. Just see this story, don't do this. This is not how you travel. And we made it back to Vienna. I think Brittany was happy about it. I took her to the Vienna Opera there, and it was probably a better thing to do. Yeah, I redeemed that. And I bring up that story because it kind of reminds me of this a little bit. I had the plan. Not only did I have the plan, I had the guidebook. I knew it. I followed the hikers that wrote about the blogs. I knew what it looked like. I saw the photos. I could tell you everything about what we were going to do. I had this whole thing. We were going to climb the summit. We were going to have 4 glorious days of sun and sunsets and just romance and German food, and it was going to be amazing. And we had 2 days of mud, rain, and fog. And something about traveling that exposes our lack of control, right? Because at home you have your thing that you do, like you've got your plan, and on most days you can kind of feel like you're in control, right? Well, when you travel, especially when you don't speak the language, you kind of are exposed, but we love it, right? Don't we love it? There's something about it that's exhilarating. You're like, we're going to get lost, and I don't know what's going to happen, but then we go back to home. So there's this, maybe 1 week out of your year, you have that feeling, it's exhilarating, and then you go back home. And I remember on the, once we realized we were not going to die in the woods, I had to get through that. But we came to this point where, all right, if we're going to have any fun, we have to re-look at this trip from what we wanted as this sunshine-filled adventure. We're going to have to receive this for what it is, in the present, not from what I was expecting, but in the present, right? And I remember clearly, it was one of the coolest travel experiences I've ever had. We stopped, and the rain had just finally got quiet, and we stood in this birch forest. The white trees, and they were all perfectly spaced out with the green under it, and there's not a soul around. There's no insects, no birds. It was the quietest thing I've ever heard. And I could hear my blood, like my organs pumping, that quiet. And I felt the presence of God so strongly in there. And Brittany has a photo of me standing on there. It's one of my favorite photos of just receiving the gift of the moment, right? And it was it's one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in nature. That night, when we got to the hut, I remember the sun finally broke out right at sunset, and the first time feeling sun on your skin, and it was a gift. And you don't know sometimes what you're missing, right? And then all of a sudden, when you can appreciate it you can appreciate the sun when you don't have it. Because then when you don't have it, and then you actually do have it, man, like, thank you. I'm thankful for that 10 minutes of sunshine, right? And I laugh now about it, but that's at the second hut, in the little gift shop in there was a postcard of this hut. And it's sitting in this green field with like the shiny, happy cows with the cowbells, and then the big mountains behind it. And we look out the window and we can't see any of it. And isn't life like that? We want this postcard. Isn't that how so much of like our phones, what our phones tell us? There's this like postcard life that we're supposed to have. And isn't that what I wanted for this event? I wanted this postcard event. And I think for me that in so many ways captures what I've been learning, my wife and I've been learning in the past season, of this faith that I realized to me is so much like this guidebook that I've read. And I went to the conferences, I read the books, and I was going, I'm going to have this victorious Christian life from glory to glory. I'm going to rock at it. It is going to be amazing. It's just going to keep getting better and better and better, right? And it worked for a while. It really did. You know, there were some years where it just was like, man, we got this thing figured out, right? And then I'm 31. I'm not very old, but it doesn't take long to realize that doesn't work. You can't this doesn't work forever, right? And I think that the cracks started forming for me where I have these expectations for the postcard life that I read about in the guidebook that said this is what it looks like, and I know I can print the photo on the wall and see it. But then when I'm in the middle of it, I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong? Do I not have enough faith? So what is that? What's going on? What is this thing about faith where is it my fault that these things are happening? And I think it's so easy to look at faith like this currency that you have to store up. And if you start having feelings of not faith, of doubt, then that currency is like falling out and you're losing the faith. And oh man, well, if I think about having these doubts, then, well, I can't do that. So then you start trying to do these mental gymnastics to try to like plug the holes so you don't lose that currency, right? That doesn't sound right, does it? No, but there's something about being in a Western logical brain that we look at faith as this thing that we can have and can control. And if I can control it, then I can feel safe and I can feel like it's going to be okay. And I think spending time with Richard Rohr, I mean, you heard it last night, we fall for this trick that faith is this mental certainty. That if I can just be certain enough, then I'm going to be okay. And if bad things are happening, then I guess I just don't have enough of it, and I need to figure out how to make it stronger, right? And who was it? I read somebody. Oh, it was Greg Boyd. He talks about faith isn't this mental certainty, but it's striving to be faithful in uncertainty, right? It's not trying to like flex this muscle. If I can just get stronger, then I'll be okay. That there's this human part of faith that looks a lot like having hurricanes come, and it looks a lot like getting lost, and it looks a lot like disappointment and loss. And like I was saying yesterday, for a couple of hours, I was robbed from the day because I was in tomorrow, worrying about tomorrow, and it hadn't even happened yet. Well, guess what happened? That somehow the clouds parted and the storm came, all around us, and I wasted all that energy and missed the moment because I had in my head what it should be. And so, it's easy to say it in a travel story, but I'm forcing myself to be more vulnerable than that. So I want to talk about two other things. And this one has been a long journey for me, but I keep seeing places where I want to just control. And that faith and control have kind of created this weird interrelationship. And that has been exposed a huge part of my life by this project that we've been calling the Fifth Ave House. Does anybody know about the Fifth Ave House here? So it's our venue in Knoxville that we miraculously have. And I just have to tell a little backstory for this to make some sense. Is that okay? It'll just take like 10 minutes. Okay, so are you guys with me? Are we good? All right. I promise this has a point, I think. Well, it did, a couple days ago when I prepared, but anyways. So in 2012, I remember Will called me and said, hey, I found this warehouse on Fifth Avenue that's for sale. And we'd been talking about this crazy idea of having a bigger space to have worship, because at this point we'd been in our living rooms, and it was getting that awkward point where you have 100 people in your house and the toilet overflows and the neighbors call and, that kind of thing. And we were thinking, I remember this one time the house was so full that I couldn't get to the bathroom. So I left the house and walked 6 houses down to my house to go to the bathroom. And I was like, this is getting out of hand. I can't even. So we needed a bigger space. And so we'd been talking about that with no idea of how to do it. But so Will sees his warehouse for sale, and it's like the ugliest building you've ever seen. It's like this puke green, legitimately, like if you could capture like a color swab of puke, that's what they painted it with, that really terrible wood siding from the 70s, I think. And they used to have big windows when they removed them and put little skinny windows in. It's like weird stuff. So we call the realtor and kind of get the guts up. And when you're in your mid-20s, there's this kind of try to pretend to be an adult voice. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you're like, okay, hold on, what would a 40-year-old sound like on the phone? Oh, hey, yeah, how much is your house? Not your house, your warehouse. Anyway, I don't know who called, if it was me or Will, but I'm thinking it's gonna be $1 million. There's no way. And it came back, it was $350,000, and we were like, yeah, I don't know, maybe that could happen. I don't know why we thought that could happen, but so we took it back to our kind of core community. And we said, what if God just gave us this warehouse somehow? And we talked about it. A few of us in our community have had bad experiences with building projects, so they were pretty, I don't know, guys, buildings, they can just totally change you. Aren't we like the living room guys? And we're just in living rooms and, that kind of thing. And we're like, well, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe we're supposed to do this, step out in faith, right? Do something like we were talking about last night, that if God doesn't show up, this thing doesn't work. And this is us trying to flex that muscle a little bit. Hey, we're getting comfortable. We're in our house. Let's do something that's way beyond our means. So I'll speed up a little bit, but it came to a point where Will said, man, I think we got to do this, but I can't do it by myself. And I had that feeling of, all right, I'm in. What are we going to do? And about a week later, I was in the shower where all good ideas happen for me. And I just in 1 minute, I kind of saw this whole blueprint where I saw us worshiping in there and filming it and live streaming it around the world. And I was like, okay, and then some people will donate money to the live stream, and that'll pay for the utilities and the taxes. And then we'll do but before that, okay, we got to do a Kickstarter campaign. So then we could raise the money, like $100,000, and then I could go to a foundation in town and say, hey, look, we raised all this money, now can you help us buy it? Which doesn't make any sense. But in the shower, man, it was like, this is it. I can't believe we did this. So because we didn't own the building. Kickstarter, there's a moral code, right? If you raise money, you have to do your thing. Well, the funny thing is we were going to raise $100,000 for a building we didn't own. Whoops. Anyways, I don't know if anybody that makes sense, but because whatever. So I've never done a Kickstarter campaign. I kind of do a little research. That's what I do. I like to learn and figure out stuff. And so we made there's really cool video, and our whole team rallied, and we came up with okay, we'll make all these prizes and all this stuff. And we started the Kickstarter campaign, and I described Kickstarter as jumping off a cliff naked, but then right before you do it, you're like, hey, everybody, I'm about to jump off naked. Does anybody want to watch me free fall? It's going to be great. And so that happened, and that every day was just excruciating. You're asking for favors. Hey, man, can you tell your people? Can you email your list? Or I don't even know what we did. I blocked it out of my memory. But I definitely remember about halfway through, we'd got stuck at maybe 30 grand, which, hey, 30 grand was awesome, but we had a lot more. We had to get to 100, and we had 30 days to get there. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I think my wife was actually out of town because I remember I was alone in the bed sweating, just sweating through the sheets. And I had just enough of like a thought of like, is this what a panic attack feels like? Am I having one? And then I was back in the panic attack. It was kind of like, I think that's what this is. Okay, just sweating and you know, I've never had one since, but I didn't really know how to pray in the panic attack. It was kind of just like a bit of an out of body experience, and then I felt the Lord just said, it reminded me of a verse in Isaiah, I think, or Jeremiah, I don't know. But it's a famous one, but all the nice things were left out, and it was just that even young men will fail. That was it. Not the nice part at the end, those who renew their faith on the wings will fly somewhere. I don't know. That verse? Sorry, I should know it by heart, but the one with the nice ending. Well, all I had was, even young men will fail. And it somehow was the most amazing thing I could hear in that moment. I was like, oh, so that's okay. I mean, I'm free falling naked to the earth, but I guess I won't die though, right? Like, it'll be okay. And I am a dreamer, and I do want people to trust me. And it is kind of, I don't want to be the boy who cries wolf that has ideas. And never mind, sorry, never mind. Here you go. Don't pay attention to me. I had all these fears coming through me, right? And that was the turning point for me during that. And woke up and I was like, all right, God, I'm banking on failing. But if I'm not going to fail, it's not me. It's going to be you doing something through a community of people that I have no power or control over to make happen. And about a day later, I woke up with the idea I should email every single person who's ever wanted to book United Pursuit, which if you ever tried to book us, we're really bad at. We're not very good at that, especially back then. And so I had quite a laundry list of emails of just random churches from who knows what, youth groups. And so I write 150 emails in a day. One at a time, I wrote personal emails and told them, this is our vision. Would you donate $5,000 to this? And we'll come out any time and come hang with you guys and do whatever you want in a house, in a church, youth camp. And 48 hours later, we'd raised $25,000, and we went from 30 to 55, and we had 7 days left. And then in 7 days, we went from 55 to 109. And it was unbelievable, okay? And I remember I was going to somebody's wedding in Virginia. Whose wedding? Was it your wedding? Yeah, it was your wedding, my brother-in-law's wedding. And I was like, okay, honey, I can't drive with you because I have to be on the computer, like doing stuff, and I got to get on the megabus. So I went on a megabus so I could be on my computer all day. And right before I get on the megabus, we reach our goal. So I just sat on the megabus for no reason all day. I was like, well, I'm on this bus. And I don't know why I just told you that. Then at no point. So the goal happened. I'm going to speed up a little bit, and there was a foundation in town that I knew about who had a bit of a track record for investing in sort of, startup nonprofits that had pretty big ideas. And so I went in and told them the story of this Kickstarter campaign and said 830 people from around the world gave to this for something in Knoxville. We need a partner to help us buy this building. We have $100,000 to do some basic renovations. We didn't own the building yet. So I was like, we kind of need to own the building. And so I had a contract with the seller by a miraculous, he agreed for a 6-month option to buy. So we had 6 months to be able to come up with the money. And then towards the end of it, every month we had to extend it. We had to pay $20,000 cash to keep extending the contract. It was like super stressful. So on the last day of the 6 months, we closed. They donated $310,000, and we bought the building with cash and started renovations shortly after. Right? Pretty crazy. So I'm sorry that's just the beginning. And so, of course, 3 months in, we realized that the roof, we thought we had 5 years left on the roof, and the roof just starts completely like flooding. I mean, we have gear everywhere, and we had like 20 buckets, like drums catching water, and then the parking lot's flooding, everything's flooding. Man, rain and me, it's bad. And we started trying to figure out how to renovate this crappy old building that's falling apart. And, it took us 2 years basically to go from this process of doing basic renovations to we had an architect who mapped out, this is what you need to make this building work. And then we went to the contractor with the plans, and it was going to be $800,000 to do it. And we thought, I don't know what we thought originally, Will, but it wasn't $800,000, right? We were thinking we could maybe renovate it for $400,000, something like that, which is still dumb, but I don't know where we're going to come up with the money. But so the whole building kind of felt like this ticking time bomb where we had all this potential energy, right? God, where were you? You made this miraculous thing happen, right? Aren't you going to finish what you started? We're putting ourselves out here. What are we going to do? Like, it felt vulnerable, right? And how do you even talk about it? Do you tell everybody? Do you pretend like everything's fine? That it's hard. How do you even communicate? It's really complicated. And so I think in a lot of ways we just kind of kept to ourselves about it. And we were about to, I don't know if giving up was the word, but somebody gave us an idea to go to this bank in town. It was like a local, because we went to all the rich people we knew. Every single rich person, I knocked on their door, told them the story, and had banquets, fundraisers, and the money, all this money that was so easy. It was so easy that, like, in hindsight, just dried up. No more. And also turns out I'm really bad at running a nonprofit. Not good for me. So it was just super stressful. Like I'm better at business, but nonprofits are their own beast. Any nonprofit runners here, I feel you. And so we were kind of didn't know what to do. And this guy said, why don't you go to this bank? It's a local bank. And I give him a call, and it turns out his daughter's been going to our worship nights for years. And he's now the head of commercial lending for this local bank. I was like, oh, that's cool. So we walk through the building with him, and at the end of the meeting, he like lays hands on me and Will and just like prays over us. And just like this like fatherly blessing from this banker guy. And we joke around in our community, we collect moms and dads, and we have all different kinds of dads. So we have like a bank dad, we have accountant dad, we have real estate dad. So we have lots of dads. And so we were like, oh man, now we have our bank dad. How cool is that? And so, and also dads like Brazil dad, UK dad, Australia, lots of dads, I guess, but there's moms too, of course. So, that was also besides the point. Where was I? Oh yeah, so he comes back and they're like, we want to work with you guys. And they basically said, we're willing to give you an $800,000 construction loan, low interest over like 25 years, basically an impossible loan. Just you can't get that loan for, a young company like us. And we were like, God, this is you. Yeah, there's a mortgage, but you'll cover it, right? $5,000 a month. Okay, that sounds terrifying, but this is you. So we closed the loan, and the money went into a construction loan, and we went immediately into code nightmare into the city. And 6 months went by, and I started having this sinking suspicion that something was not right. And Will and I would try to talk about it. It was the funniest. It was like the elephant in the room where we're like, oh man, we're doing this, right? Yeah, right? We're totally doing this. But nobody wanted to say, should we be doing this? And it just the project kept getting delayed. And we had all this money sitting at the bank, and yet we hadn't spent any of it. It was just sitting there. And finally, I don't know who said it, but we just kind of thought, what if this is not what we're supposed to do? And it immediately brought up this feeling of like I was killing a part of me. If we don't do this, I'm killing this piece of me, this like dream. I can't kill this dream. This is God's dream. And I started having this feeling that I needed this dream to be successful. And hindsight, looking back at it at all, it's so easy for things to start pure and innocent and full of faith. And in the process, that faith you start losing that relationship with God, and it starts, for me, it was about, man, this approval of man feels pretty good. You know, it turns out I'm good at this kind of stuff. I didn't know that I could like do Kickstarter campaigns and raise money and build spreadsheets and get bank dads to give us $800,000. Like, and now people know about it. And like, I really want to finish what I started, and I need this for me. And that place of belonging as a son, I was losing that and trading it for this thing that felt in a lot of ways more real, this affirmation of man, that applause of man saying, hey, your contribution, I see you, and that's good. And man, that's nice. I like that, right? And we started thinking about, what if we're not supposed to do this anymore? What if God has other plans? And there's a lot more to it, but I'm going to, for sake of time, there was this moment where we kind of realized we hadn't touched the money. We could return it. We could literally give the money back to bank dad. Hey, dad, would you like the $800,000 back? And we gone back and forth, and it was just Will was saying, man, if you're in, I'm in. And I'm kind of like, well, if you're in, I'm in. And finally, I knew I just had to make the decision. And so at this point, we had a lawyer who was helping us sort of figure out what this would mean if we returned the money. And I emailed him and said, hey, we're going to stop this. We're going to return this and see what God wants to do. And he said, he like wrote back, he's like, I need a all caps reply of, we are turning this loan back. Like, signed, sealed, delivered. It's done. And all day I was just like biting my nails. I don't think I did anything that day. I think I just like paced around my office and sat back down and looked and go downstairs. Brittany, what do you think? I mean, have I lost my mind? Am I out of faith? Do I need to stay like fast or something and like pray more and to get the courage back to like keep pressing? Because I'm a good bulldozer. I know how to just keep fighting, right? And isn't that what we do as Americans? We just fight. We just keep going no matter what. Seems like our discernment's really good when it's time to push hard and fight and make it happen. But man, when we feel like God's saying to give something up, we lock up. I came downstairs, I sat there and I wrote the email and pushed send, and I felt like a piece of me died. And then, this is crazy, but 15 minutes later, this guy named Mark calls me. He's saying, hey, so Mark's our neighbor at Fifth Ave. And he wanted to buy the building at the same time we were. And he didn't get to buy it. He was really annoying to the sellers, and he kept trying to lowball them with cash. And like we came in out from under him and took the building out. And so he knows who I am. And then he tried to buy our parking lot and tried to buy half the parking lot. And he was super annoying, but you got to love Mark. He's great. And he calls, he's like, hey man, this is just my once a year check-in. If you ever want to sell Fifth Ave, I would love to buy it from you. 15 minutes after that. And I got off the phone and just felt tears streaming down my face. Because there was peace again, and I forgot what that feeling was. It was like, oh, that's you. There's the peace. I don't know where it was, but it's like I've been a frog boiling, and I didn't know that the peace had long gone, and I was in this place of striving, and I was so used to it. I was hardened. I was getting kind of crusty. I was losing my friends in the process. People started not being my friends. They started being people that could help me finish this thing. And I lost the human journey. I lost the plot. I lost the present. And I was living for the future. And I had the postcard in my head of Fifth Ave done. And my name was signed on the bottom. And I knew that that's not the life that I want. That's not this faith. That's not what the invitation, when Michael was saying come away last night, that brought up all these feelings of the faith journey that we caught in Mozambique, that we were like, we are in, we want this. We'd lost the plot. Or I'm not saying I did. I lost it. I lost the plot. And there was something so significant to letting that go. And I think there's so much more room to learn about having discernment, when to push, when to fight, and when to release, right? And when to go, is this faith Am I living in the now? Am I connecting with God as a child, belonging, not striving out of because I need to perform for God to like me, or I need to perform for the praise of man so I can have some validation that my life has a purpose? It's really gray, right? It's so easy to lose it. I think that I think for many here tonight or today, this weekend has been probably an onslaught of emotions, ideas, feelings, and you're leaving here not with crystal clear plan for your life, but a lot of mixed feelings of hope, promise, and confusion. You maybe thought that you were coming with these questions that you were going to walk away with answers. You were going to come away with these answers. You were going to come away with this, like, I've got the blueprint. And there's times when you get the blueprint. Let me tell you, it happens. It happened to me in the shower. It happened to me with reunion. But man, it's easy to want to write your name on that blueprint. You forget where it comes from. You want to write your name on it. And then we kind of like that in America. The other cultures are not so much, but we're all about it. Oh man, you're so awesome. You're so, like, look how many followers you have. Like, look at all the things that you do. And we just slap each other's backs, but we kind of hope that they're doing the same for us. And we write our name on it, and we start taking the credit, and we lose the relationship with God, and we lose it in each other. Because then we start looking at each other we start manipulating, we start subtly controlling, because we need that person to help me with my thing. We have to listen to the words of guys like Richard Rohr, who are saying, we are desperate for a renewing of our mind, out of this place that I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna have this certainty, and I'm gonna look at faith like a currency that I can collect and hoard myself. It doesn't work that way. We're losing the human part of it. And when we do that, we lose that relationship with God, because we have Jesus who sympathizes with us as being fully human. He knows. He's not asking for us to be perfect and have this perfection of faith, right? He's saying, be real, be here, be now. Right? So I have one more story to tell, and this one's a little even closer to home. And my wife and I, like a normal married couple, after a few years of having fun and being footloose and fancy free, we're like, I think it's time to start a family. And man, there is a postcard for your family in the future. Isn't there? You've got it planned out. You've got it down to the house where you're living, the city you're in, the job that you have. And we're like, we're ready to have kids. We've got a house. We've got a room for the kid. We have enough money to buy all the baby stuff to fill in that room. Let's go. And then 1 month turned into 3 months, and 3 months turned into 6. And my wife is just a way better human than me, so she was actually dealing with it as a human should. And she was feeling the weight of it and the fear of it. And here am I going, well, somebody's got to have the faith. Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, well, I got to be the strong guy that's got the faith, that knows what's going on, and that's going to be holding to those promises that, well, we're having a family, we're having what we have in our minds. We're going to have that. Just like we're going to have this weekend where it's crystal clear skies, we're going to have bonfires every night. Or we're going to have that perfect hike in the Alps. Or we're going to have that job. Or we're going to move to New York. Or we're going to get that internship that gets us that other thing. And I shut down. And I pretended to have faith. But it was long ago faith. I was freaked out of my mind, and I didn't even know it. My mind didn't even understand it. And when my wife would weep, I would go through the motions of doing what a good husband would do, but I was not there for her. Because I had this theology in my head, this belief system, that if I had enough faith, then it was going to get us through, and then we were going to have a kid. And we went to the fertility clinic, and that office was a place of pain, and it felt like shame, like something was broken. And then my wife woke up one day and she said, I think I have endometriosis. And there's not really a way for people to know, the doctors to know for sure, unless you go through this really invasive surgery. And it's really, it's intense. You got to go under anesthesia. You got to go under the knife. And she told her fertility doctor, and he said, I trust you. Okay. So we did the surgery, and Brittany was right. She had, I think, level 3 out of 4. And it doesn't mean you can't get pregnant ever, but it can make it very difficult into taking years or not at all. And we had the most amazing doctor, and he just did this fabulous job. And I remember waking Brittany up and saying, it's all gone. And we just crying together, thankful for God anointing this doctor to do this thing that was miraculous, right? So we, I think that was in the spring. I don't know which year, I'm losing track, but I remember another couple months go by, and man, it was even worse. It was like the salt being in that wound, just like grinding through that. And I remember it was Memorial Day weekend, and we were at the pool, and we were just kind of chilling out, hanging out, and I saw Brittany had these big glasses on, and I just saw tears were just coming through the glasses, and she had saw another pregnant belly, and she was just done, and I was so mad. I was so mad at her because I didn't want those emotions. She was like, she's spoiling everything. We're having this nice Memorial Day party. We had all these plans, and we were gonna, right? The plans, right? We were going to do all this stuff, and my wife just wanted to go mourn, and I didn't have any grace to mourn with her because I didn't have a place for that in my thinking. I couldn't even go there. And I remember we're bad fighters, so we don't fight very well. Brittany pretty much cries, and then I'm like, it's hard to cry. It's hard to fight with a crying woman. You're like, okay, never mind. But it's true, though. It's hard. You feel like a bad man. And, I mean, we fought on the way home, and Brittany just laid into me. And I've never had her do this before. And it was pretty terrifying. And she was saying, where are you? Do you not see? Do you not see me? And I'm like, don't even know what to say. I'm just like completely shutting down. And this like, I just want to run and hide. I just want to totally shut down and hide. And we got home, and usually I'm kind of annoying. Brittany wants to go and have some space. I'm like, no, we're going to figure this out, right? And I was like, oh, we're not figuring this out. I'm going upstairs. So I go upstairs, and Brittany's downstairs, and I lay up on the bed and trying to pray, just trying to, figure out something to do. I don't know. Trying to dig deep and find that faith. Okay, we're going to have breakthroughs. And I didn't find that, but I found the fear. And I found the fear that Brittany had been processing the whole time. What if we don't have kids? And I found it hit me like a wave, and I just wept upstairs. Just cried so hard. And I don't know if I came and got you or you came. I think you just came up the stairs. You probably heard me. And I had no words, but I just held Brittany and wept. And we wept together, and we grieved together and let go. It was like letting go of that postcard. We're like, use us, God. Like, we're supposed to adopt. Okay. Like, we're going to let go of what we think life is supposed to be. And we're just going to receive. And we're going to be, as kids, powerless. You're our every breath. You're our life. Right? And I remember laying hands on her womb and praying a different kind of prayer. And it wasn't a prayer of going, I've got this figured out, that God's going to come and do a miracle. It was a prayer of mourning. And we were back in the present together. There was a gift in the pain of intimacy that's the most powerful intimacy I've ever felt with anyone and with God. At this one moment, and it was disguised in this fear, and I couldn't see it because I was so distracted with what was out of my control over here and this illusion of it, and that if I could have the right beliefs, then I could avoid the pain. The next month, we got pregnant. And I had to say it because it's just too good. And it wasn't a magic trick. There was no magic word. There wasn't this thing that we had to do. I don't have to know how or why, but I sure know what God had for us. It was relationship. It was with my wife and with God, and it was real, and it is worth fighting for the real, and the real is now. It's not in the past, and it's not in the future. It is now. And we need our minds renewed because we will miss it. Do you hear what I'm saying? We will miss it. And all the potential energy swirling around in this place, you know it because you were created to belong and you were created to contribute. And you know you were created for good works. Do not fall that by your contribution, you will feel received and loved because you already are and you don't need to do anything else. You need to be a kid, and kids live in the now, let me tell you. They're not thinking about tomorrow. Aubrey this morning just ran around in her diaper and she just played with the ice chest. She kept opening it up and then sticking her hands in it and going, oh, and taking it out. And then she was like, what if I put grass clippings in this thing? And then she put grass in it. And then that was cool. And then she was like, maybe I could put a rock in it. And then she started looking for a rock. Because why? She's in the now. She doesn't have to worry about tomorrow. She doesn't have to worry how we're going to get home, worrying about traffic, getting stuck. But here's the cool thing, is that He's given you a mind. He's given you creativity. He's given you vision. So we are kids at heart, and yet we are created to change the world. How do you reconcile that? You don't have to. You do it with each other, right? Just do it with each other. Do not do it alone. I can't imagine doing life without these brothers over here, because they see the real me, and when I'm lost out here worrying about what happened or what could happen, they help me remember. We need each other. And it is not split, it is all connected. And isn't it what Richard was talking about last night? Unity and diversity of this perfect circle of love. That is God that invites us into it, and not just for us, that we may extend that to anyone. And I'm going to say one more thing. You guys can go ahead and come up if you want. We can get kind of plugged in. When our belief system becomes so certain, it creates this ego. It allows this place of ego to come up. We decide that we are on the right and others are on the wrong. And you know what that does? It excludes and it discounts and it ignores the life and the gift in others, and it robs us from the humanness of it, and it's idolatry. We are not God, and our ability to perceive reality is so skewed. We have no concept of what's happening in somebody else's life. Right? And our brains, and I think this is part of, to me, this is the root of sin, is that we look through our eyes as truth. Everything we see, we filter through this lens of incomplete picture. And yet our brains interpret that as truth and right. And so when we look at somebody and they did something or said something, and we have this whole case built up how that we're on the right and they're on the wrong, and we don't know. We've got to figure this out. We've got to recover the humanness that is faith. That's what we were made for as children, not to have the answers and to figure it out, but to bear with one and each another in the joys and the pain of life. It is all included. Everything belongs. To me, when I think of this weekend, I want you to walk away. If there was one thing to walk away with, I want you to catch that you belong and you're created to contribute, and you are to do that with each other, and nobody is excluded. So I think I just want to say a prayer, and then we're pretty close to wrapping up. I think we'll probably say a few things to thank a few people at the end. But for this next space, just as inspired and challenged by Krista, let's go into here. In those places that feel like the equation isn't working, maybe it's time for that equation to be gone. Just like I said, I don't have to know why God gave us Aubrey Gold when he did. But I know for sure that today and tomorrow in the future is that I'm to be connected with my wife, my community, and my neighbor, and my enemy. And I don't have to know the when or the how or what I'm going to be doing or what reunion's going to become or how I need to try to protect it and keep my piece of the pie. The world is crying out for that. Our country is crying out for that. We want to just skew. We want to split in two and say, well, who are you? Are you on this? Are you on that? There is something, and Jesus was the best at this. You could go back through the New Testament this fall and go see all the places where people tried to trap him. Well, are you for Caesar? Are you against him? Are we going to revolt or not? Are we going to exclude that Samaritan? Are we going to exclude that tax collector? You can't pin him down. And if he is the perfect embodiment of the Trinity, written down so he came in the flesh so we could see that and know what that means. Let's not miss the plot. It's right there. It's so easy to see it. When you come from the perspective of what Jesus, how he transcended the argument of you have to pick a side and then stick to your guns. I thank you, Jesus, that you came to show us the heart of God, the swirling, burning furnace of love that is for us and against anything that is against us. And I pray that this word, the word that you imparted to so many of these elders, leaders, mentors, Richard all the way in Albuquerque, Heidi coming from Mozambique, Jason coming, all these people that are carrying just pieces of gold of life. And then you throw in all the incredible, amazing works of art that is in each person here. That there would be a harvest, that the seeds would return 100-fold.